I came to this country at the age of 6. I remember being excited and just experiencing everything, the newness of of what life is in the United States. It was one night, I remember this very clearly, and I went to sleep, typical day, and all of a sudden, I had this out of body experience where I felt like there was a spirit that just came and just tried to like take my spirit. And I remember kind of what the face looked like. It looked like a man a little bit, but then, from the torso down, it didn't have like any feet or anything. It was just the weirdest thing. All of a sudden, like, I remember my dad turning on the lights, and I was just scared. I was just shaken up, and my dad was like, "Hey, what happened? What happened?" And I tried to explain to him, but I was really young at the time, so I couldn't really, explain that well. About a year and some change later, my dad had made the decision to leave my mom. My mom at the time had my younger brother, who was a baby at the time, and have an older sibling in Dominican Republic. And I remember, meeting this new woman that came, into my life. This was, who later became my stepmom, and she had a daughter and a son, and stayed with them for like a little bit. And school was tough. School was very tough. I remember one incident where, this boy all of a sudden just picked a fight with me, and I could tell he was a bully. So he would just, grab these books and he would just throw them at me. And I got into a fight, and I was young. I didn't really speak English that well. I just came, from the Dominican Republic, and I was just, fighting this kid. So they had called my dad and told him, exactly what happened. I ended up going home, and I just, see the expression of my dad. He was furious. He was upset. I don't think I've ever seen my dad this upset before. I knew he was mad, but, I've never seen him, at this caliber. Well, the first thing he does, he has this belt in his hand, but he picks me up literally like 3 feet up high and then just drops me. I don't think I was so upset at the fall. I think I was just more scared at what else he would be willing to do to me with that anger that he had. He just hit me with the belt a couple more times. Then after that, he he tied me up in a chair. So he just, he had a rope. I don't know where he found it, but he had some rope, tied me up in a chair. And I've never experienced quite a beating like that before in my life. It was pretty bad. My stepmom, she was there. She was scared too. She didn't know what was going on. And my dad actually, left after that. And my stepmom was feeding me spaghettis because she knew that I can't take him out of the ropes that he's in, tied to a chair. Later found out that my mom had sent my little brother to the Dominican Republic. She couldn't afford to pretty much keep him anymore. So she sent him over to her mother and some other, her sisters, and I ended up now going back to my mom. So I was with my mom now for some time. Now my mom had to work, so she had to pay the bills. It was just her. And during this time, there was a babysitter that she took care of us. Now she was Christian, and we, she started, taking me to church and bringing my mom to church and my younger brother. So by that time, my mom was able to bring my younger brother back to the United States. Actually my older brother as well. So we were going to church. And to be honest, I didn't like church at all. Church was boring to me. I would just fall asleep during the sermons. I really didn't quite get what they were saying, like all this Jesus stuff. Until one night, they actually made an altar call. Now, around that time, I was about, I want to say 12 or 13 years old. And, I don't know what it was, but I felt like I just had to go up for some reason. So I went up. I accepted Jesus, my Lord and Savior. Now, again, I'm young, so I didn't even know what sin was. But I knew I just had to go up and accept Jesus. And after accepting Jesus, I felt really happy. I felt like at peace. I felt like this like huge burden that just, came off of me. I would say about a year and a half later, I was like 13 or 14 years old at the time. you know, my mom makes a decision that she wants to move to Chicago. So we were living it was me, my older brother, my younger brother. My older brother was very rebellious. He was into drugs. He was didn't want to go to school. He didn't want to listen to my mom at all. And my mom really struggled with him because, he was already now like 16, 17 years old. That's when he actually came to this country because, he lived in the Dominican Republic since he was a little baby. So my mom was able to bring him when he was 16 or 17. And he was just, living his life and doing what he wanted to do at the time. My mom had a hard time, trying to bring my older brother to Dominican Republic because he just didn't want to go. He knew that if he went, he was going to stay over there. So, she called the cops and, pretty much she was able to get him to come to the airport. So we all flew down there. And she was going to go back to the United States and literally do the whole entire move. So all of our clothes or all of our belongings, she was going to move it to Chicago. And I remember the day before she went, she was going to come back to the United States after we were down there. Her flight got canceled the first time. And we were just like, all right, that's kind of weird. Okay, it's fine. And I remember talking to her like, hey, I really miss you. Hope everything is fine. I hope everything works out. So, she got on the plane and, she made it to the United States, and she was actually now doing the move. Well, in the transition between going from Jersey to Chicago, she had a U-Haul truck with some other of our relatives. One of the U-Haul trucks actually hit the back car where my mom was at, and she was actually sleeping. So it caught fire. She died. And, when we got the notice, they actually called us in the Dominican Republic and they told us, hey, we're really sorry. Your mom passed. She died from a burn. The car got hit from a U-Haul truck. And literally that happened. Now, I remember when at that age, I think it was like 14 years old, it really didn't hit me then. I knew that, my mom had died, but it was almost so surreal that I was like, all right, well, maybe, this is not real, or, I was so young I couldn't really even process this, right? But some everybody was crying and, tearing up, and we had the funeral. They, got her body, or at least what was left of it, and they did the proper burial. We had like a whole huge, ceremony down there for her and all of that. And it was a big ordeal. Like, it really struck the family really hard because she was one of the few that actually made it to the United States. The rest of her family is still over there. So, she would send them, money, and she would send them clothes and all these different things. So it was a big blow to the family across the board. So, some time passed. Now my older brother was over there, so was my younger brother, and my dad had of course found out about it as well. And being my dad, he came and he picked me up. So now I was living with my dad. It was tough during that time in my life. It was really tough because I didn't have my mom anymore, right? And how to kind of process all of this as I was going through it. I remember getting into like this big depression, right? And it was almost like it just took hold of me, like really hold of me, to the point where people would talk to me and say, hey, how's it going? And I wouldn't even respond to them. It was pretty bad. Every single time I was going to the church, my dad hated the fact that I was going to church, period. He said, the church was satanic and, church wasn't of God and all these things. And my dad just didn't approve of it. It was a lot of demonic attack going on, especially in that place we were at. I mean, at night you would hear like some sounds in the basement. Randomly you would hear the water turn on. There was a lot of stuff going on. And I still remember, my dad, he would like turn on the candle for my stepsister because he didn't get along with her. And it was like this shut up, candle, which was very strange. And, I didn't know what any of that stuff was. All I knew is I just want to go to church and just serve God. Dad and my stepmom took it upon themselves to say, hey, well, we gotta get you help. Apparently, the church that you're going to is not helping enough. So we know where to take you to kind of get the help that you need. So they ended up taking me to this psychic lady who, I had no idea who she was. I had told them, hey, no, I don't really want to go. Like, I'm fine. It's all good. But, they insisted. So I went with them, and I remember walking and just thinking, man, I really don't want to do this. So I went, we sat down. It was like this little small apartment on the second floor. And, I sit with her, and then my dad and my stepmom are, in the other room. And, one of the first questions that she asked me is like, who did you team up with? And I remember thinking, well, first of all, I didn't even have any friends to begin with, so what are you talking about? She's like, no, like, you teamed up with somebody. Like, tell me, who did you team up with? And I was like, I don't know. Like, what are you saying? And then after that, there was like this other room, like to the corner in the side, and I remember that's where they wanted to take me. And thinking back, I didn't want to go into this room. I knew that there was something evil about it. I didn't know what to expect, and we got into like a physical fight. My dad and I. My dad wanted to force me into this room, and I fought back. I was like, no, I'm not going. Like, leave me alone. Like, we literally fought, and it was back and forth to the point where he was just trying to drag me, and I was like, no, like, I'm not going in. And I recall at that moment screaming from the top of my lungs, no, in Jesus' name. And all of a sudden, you saw this fear in the lady. And she's like, no, put him down. Like, here, put him in this chair, put him down. And, she commanded my dad, she's like, no, stop, leave him alone, put him here, sit him down. And, after that, she said, hey, well, just give him these showers. It was like these, like, Coke bottles or whatever with, like this water, like, whatever water, I guess, that they had or whatever. I was like, oh, here, give him these baths when he gets home and do that. So, at the time, first of all, I'm a new believer. I'm really young. I have no idea. But when I did say in the name of Jesus at that point, like, everything stopped. Like, she was scared. She instructed my dad to sit me down. And, I remember thinking, wow, like, God, yeah, like, this is awesome. You actually saved me from the situation. I had no idea what they wanted to do with me in that room, but I knew it wasn't any good. So after that, we went home. They gave me the bath that she had, recommended or whatnot. I started feeling a little bit better. So I was working with my dad. Now, my dad at the time, he had his own business. So we would, produce these jewelries and, make these jewelries. We called them pulseras. But we would just make them from home, and then we would go and, like, knock on people's door and say, hey, work for this company. Like, do you guys want it? So it was me and my stepmom usually who went out. My dad, usually stayed in the car. So we would go out, like, literally. She would go and, touch on a couple of doors, and I would go in a building and touch on a few doors. And mind you, I'm like 15 at the time, 16, extremely young. But here I am, like, in the cities, just, working. So I remember one time going through a toll, and all of a sudden I hear this voice. And it was I could tell it was very, very demonic. It was like we passed through the toll, and literally, like, the guy just screamed, like, whatever it was. But I knew it wasn't of God. I knew it was very demonic. And I remember looking at my dad, and the reaction of his face, I got the sense that he heard exactly what I heard. Now, I didn't want to say anything like, oh, yeah, I heard this sound. Did you hear it? Just because, it sounded like I was crazy. So I kind of, just kept it to myself. But I knew that my dad heard it as well. My dad decided, you know what, we're just going to move to Chicago. And I remember I didn't want to go. I just, was in high school at the time. It was my, freshman year in high school. Ended up going and living there for about, 6 months. There was a lot of gangs out there. It was just a definitely different environment. It was definitely pretty bad. To the point where it just, didn't work out. So we ended up moving back. Because of the U-Haul truck situation, there was a lawsuit involved. My uncle pretty much, set up the initial lawsuit for it, but it took years before I actually got the money. And part of the reason why it took years is because my uncle wanted more money. So, he wasn't getting, at least he felt that he wasn't getting enough. I do remember sitting at the kitchen table, and I was just writing, like on a notebook, and the radio was on, and, I was listening to something on the radio, and all of a sudden, I would hear these like voices from the radio coming out, and it would say, scribble, scrabble, scratch. And I'm writing, and I keep writing, and these weird noise would continue saying these things, scribble, scrabble, scratch. I'm like, what the heck is this? But anyway, I continue writing, not a problem. And all of a sudden now I'm not that I get violent, but I start saying some violent things I want to say. I don't remember exactly what I was saying, but apparently they were pretty violent. So I see my stepmom, I see my dad, and all of a sudden, like, my stepmom was like, we got to call the cops. So they end up calling the cops, and I remember going downstairs. I see the cop car there with, 3 police officers. And I'm like, all right, what in the world is going on? And all of a sudden, I get into the police car. They turn the lights on and all this stuff. And I start speaking and saying these things. And I'm just like, I know I'm not saying these things, but for whatever reason, like, I'm saying all these things. And one of the things I do remember saying was, take me upstairs. I have no idea why in the world I would say that. And from that moment on, I blacked out. I literally, to this day, cannot remember what happened after that. But I knew, seeing the lights and just kind of being around that area. The next scene, literally what I remember is now being in the hospital right before, registration. And, I see my stepmom. Have no idea where my dad is. He probably was looking for parking. I don't know. But during that time, like, I see her, but through her, I see that it's, there's not her. I see something different. And, I remember saying, I you look like Lucifer, like, and, whatever, the registration happened, and she continued, and, I went in. So I remember going into this room, and again, I was like still saying stuff. So they put me on this bed. Right next to me, there's like this older guy. And, he had something on his head. I don't know, it was like a covering or some wrap, above his head. And I'm over here now arguing with this guy, saying some stuff as if, like, I'm God or whatever. I have no idea what I was saying, but, like, since the beginning and all this stuff, blah, blah. And the guy's, like, responding back to me. And I could tell this was not normal. Like, I could tell this was not a regular conversation just with somebody else. Like, this was like some type of spiritual, demonic, something not of God that literally, was going on. So all of a sudden, like, I'm talking, blah, blah, to the point where this guy's like, all right, I can't take it anymore. He gets up and he starts walking. Now, to put it in perspective, like, this guy I felt like he was like paralyzed. He couldn't even move because he was just talking. And they had taken me to like the separate room, and it was a very solitary. Like, I knew it was like solitary. Like, if you did something that was extreme, that's where they put you. I guess with the people that were considered crazy, I would say. So I was there for 3 weeks. So I had gone out. I was finally released. My dad and my stepmom. I was staying with them for a bit, and I was actually diagnosed, like I mentioned before, with manic depression. So they had given me lithium pills. I'm not sure if you are familiar with lithium, but it's pretty powerful. It kind of relaxes you pretty strongly. And I remember my dad saying, "Oh, you like these pills because you like to get high and all that stuff." And I was like, "What are you talking about? Like, this is what they recommended for me to take. I'm not really, doing this because I want to." Some time passed, and my dad made the decision, you know what, I'm just going to send them to the Dominican Republic. I didn't want to go. I knew that it was going to be a step backwards for me, as I was, freshman or sophomore year in high school already. This was my junior year in high school. Actually, no, sorry, my sophomore year in high school. So I was sent to the Dominican Republic, and I was living with my aunt over there. it was time for, I think, the lawsuit for us to collect the money from the lawsuit. So around that time, my dad had brought me back to the United States. As I came back, he made the decision, okay, well, now we're going to move to Indiana. Now, I didn't want to move to Indiana, being that we already moved to Chicago. That didn't work out too well. My dad helped me find a place. I was paying like $300, I think, a month. Ended up working at McDonald's, and I knew I didn't want to move to Indiana. So after that, my dad, my stepmom, my sister, my stepsister, my stepbrother, they all moved. I stayed by myself, living there. It was my junior year in high school now. I was living on my own, and it was rough. It was definitely tough. I didn't have literally no one. It was just on my own, just going to school, going to work. So I was working at McDonald's for $5.25 an hour, then became a crew trainer, then became a manager, and literally I was just there. Now, I didn't have any desire or ambition to go to college. That was not my intent. I was just thought, hey, I'm just gonna work, call it a day. It's fine. All of a sudden, my dad pops out of nowhere, and I'm still living in the little apartment for like 300. It was like smaller than a studio. It was literally just a room, and we shared a bathroom with like other people. So, my dad came back, and he asking me for money. Hey, listen, you got like some money to spare? Like, well, I guess it didn't work out too well in Indiana. I was like, yeah, sure. I think I had like $80 at the time or whatever, $60. So I gave it to him, no problem. Now, mind you, I'm not making that much money to begin with, but it's my dad. He came back. It's great. And I actually got to, be with my dad and spend some time with him. Around that time was when the lawsuit actually, took place. So I remember seeing my older brother, who actually he ended up coming back from the Dominican Republic, which he stood there, but he came back. And I remember seeing my older brother. I'm like, oh wow, it's so great to see you, all this stuff. And it was time to us get the checks from the lawsuit that we've been waiting for so many years. So it was my dad, my stepmom, my older brother, and literally the judge. So, I'm talking from the judge, and the judge is asking me, so, tell me about you and what you had to go through and all this stuff. So I told him very clearly. I was like, look, I've been living on my own for some time, just recently now, just living with my dad, but I had to go through I literally told him the truth, what the truth was. My dad didn't like that so much. So with that, he took his stuff and he just left again. Now, I had lived on my own already, so it's no big deal to me. It was now with my older brother. So with my older brother, he strategically, and I say strategically, because he had everything mapped out. He literally had taken care of my phone bills, anything that I needed. I mean, the first time that we got the checks, we went into a bank. I signed, he signed. I'm like, all right, great, yeah, I have my checks and you have yours, so we're good to go, not a problem. Now, my brother was also money hungry, because he was in need, and he dropped out of high school, so he didn't have much. So we each got 84,000. I got 84,000. He got 84,000, and he decided, oh, I'm gonna take 20,000 in advance. So there's some agencies where you can actually get money in advance if there's like a lawsuit. So he had done that. So he had like $57,000 left. So my older brother took care of all my needs. Literally bought me clothes, he bought me all this stuff. Now in my mind, I'm like, oh, that's really nice of you, buying stuff from your own money, being that I have my own money. That's awesome. Because he had taken care of my needs, I never touched my money. Like literally the last time I had anything with my money was that I just knew that I just put it in the bank and it was safe. So my thought process was, all right, well, I'm going to use that money once I get out of college to pay for school, to pay for maybe get a car, like everything I literally need. Now, the thing about it was that because my younger brother was the youngest, the judge gave him most of the money. The judge gave him about $160,000. So that's how so much money he got. On top of that, he sent $20,000 to my family over there in the Dominican Republic, so they can, watch him and take care of him while his money matures and all that. Now, his money this whole time has been collecting interest. While in college, that's actually when it hit me, and I missed my mom the most. During that time, it was really, really hard for me. And, what was interesting was that although it was my saddest moment, I did not get into a depression similar to how I did before when I was with my dad, and then, get hospitalized and all that stuff. So although I was sad and it hit me the most as far as, being with my mom, it just, it didn't, I never went into that state. I remember, my girlfriend, who's not my wife, I was broke. Literally had a negative $100 in the bank, and she literally, one paycheck said, "Hey, I'll pay for you." I'm like, "No, it's fine." She's like, "No, I'll pay." So she went and paid for me. So that was really nice of her. Some time passed, and I was like, "Hey, man, like, why am I even going through all this hardship? I'm just gonna go to the bank and just take out some money because, I have 84,000." So I go to the bank. I think it was probably Washington Mutual at the time, because that was before Chase bought them out. So Washington Mutual, I go in. I'm like, "Yeah, I just want to take out some money, like $200 or $300, whatever." And the bank teller looks at me and he's like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Yeah, I want to take out $200, $300. He's like, "No, you actually have a balance here of $186. I was like, "There has to be a mistake. Like, what do you mean? I have like $84,000. He's like, "No, like literally, you have a balance. In other words, you owe us $186. And just, oh my gosh, I cannot believe my older brother has literally robbed me and taken all of my money. I had no idea what was going on behind the scenes, and I started to connect some dots. And I came to the realization that the day that I actually went into the bank, my older brother had done a joint account. So this joint account literally gave him power or authority to use my money as well. One day, I approached him and I was like, "Hey, I'm actually going to go to the bank to take out some money because, I need some money." He's like, "No, what do you need? What do you need?" Like, "Oh, I need like, about $100 and something dollars, to the XYZ." "No, here, not a problem. How much you need?" And, he had a lot of stuff. So he had big screen TV. He had the finest clothes. He would pay like, $200 for like, like a suit, and like literally living this lavish lifestyle while I'm over here in college trying to work dirt poor, $100 that I owed the bank. And my mindset was, I'm not going to waste this money because this money is a representation of what my mom died, and I want to use it, in a good way. I want to, get a house potentially and, use it for whatever I needed. So, at that moment, I told him, I was like, "Hey, I can't believe you would actually do that. Like, you took my money. Like, where is it? Like, what did he do?" He's like, "Oh, listen, man, I've been meaning to tell you. I feel so bad." And he got into it and all this stuff. He started kind of like feeling bad. "Hey, I lend 20,000 to one of our uncles, and I gave some money to like my girlfriend and all this stuff. But hey, don't worry, man. Whatever I do, I'm gonna pay you back." I was like, "Wow, okay, so yeah, that's interesting." So at that point, all these kind of thoughts came to my head. All right, well, I'm gonna get you back, or whatever the case was. So I remember being in life group. We had like a men's group every, throughout the week, once a week. And the leader of the life group mentioned, "What is that one thing you most fear?" And I thought to myself, yeah, I'm afraid of heights, I'm afraid of water, but the one thing I most feared was the event that I had with the psychic, and how, I screamed out Jesus' name, and, I was so fearful of what they were going to do to me in that room. And I remember sharing that little bit of my testimony with the group. And another gentleman, one of the other guys, he said, "Hey, what's the situation like with your dad? Like, what's going on there?" And I remember thinking, well, I don't have any relationship with my dad. That's something that I just don't. And I explained that the only time I really do see me, reconnecting with my dad would be at his deathbed. And, I felt justified at the time to say that, given everything I've been through, given, my situation and all this demonic activity that, I was going through and all this stuff. And, later that week, I was watching some videos and stuff like that, and I came across this one video, and the video was about Judgment Day. And, this guy, he was just praying to God. He's like, hey, God, just give me an out-of-body experience. So, God gave him this experience that he had, and he was in judgment. And literally, he saw like thousands of people in front of him and stuff like that. And, one lady will come up and, God will tell her, hey, I'm not mad at you, the post, all the Facebook posts that you made. I'm mad at you because it put 300,000 people astray. Depart from me. So this portal will open, and she was just thrown into it, and it got up to this guy in the video, and he was talking with God, and God asked him like, hey, why didn't you forgive this lady? And he's going through and talking to God, and at a certain point he just felt like, all right, well, it doesn't really matter, like I already know where I'm going. So he just kind of looks to the side and stuff like that. And, as he explained it, like everyone had like these seeds like in their hearts and in their body, and their bodies were like transparent. And, God told him, then, if you forgave the lady, then why do you have these seeds? And he's like, oh, that's what the seeds are for. And he was just so just scared of the fact that he was going to go to hell. So, God pretty much told him, you don't get a well done, you barely made it. And, he got into heaven and stuff like that, but he was just scared and terrified. But this video shook me to the core, because it just made me realize, like, wow, here I am, thinking about my dad. And yes, I went through hardship, and yes, it was hard, and yes, there was a lot of demonic activity and all that stuff. But here I am, putting that against my own dad, where, from the video, it was like people were going to hell for not forgiving other people, essentially. And after, watching that video, it just really got to me, and it shook me to my core, and thinking, wow, here I am, in this bitterness of heart because of my situation. And, what it came down to was, I literally repented before the Lord, and I told God, listen, I'm sorry. Like, I want to make things right with my dad. I want to make things right with my brother. And, after that happened, like a week later, I think it was, I get up one morning and, God tells me, you need to fast. And I was like, okay, yeah, sure. So I kind of brush it off. I don't really pay attention. And, some time passes by. I think it was like 3 weeks, maybe a month. And I'm watching a sermon by a preacher, and he's preaching, and in the middle of the preaching he says, yeah, you need to fast for a week. Now at that moment, it was almost as if God was talking to me, telling me that's how long I needed to fast for. So I didn't hesitate at all. I literally began the fast that Sunday night. So I started this week-long fast with just water. Into the fast, I thought, what is this? It's not really nothing. This is just whatever. I'll go through it. No, it's fine. So Thursday night, I couldn't sleep for whatever reason. I just, couldn't sleep. So, I get this like impression to just go and pray. So I go and I pray, and all of a sudden I get into like this fervent prayer, and I'm really praying really hard, and go to sleep. I go to sleep after that. The next day, same thing. I'm fasting, and so Friday goes by, and I wake up. So Saturday morning, I'm praying to God, and I'm reading the Bible, and all of a sudden I remember that I had a dream. And with dreams, I don't really remember them that vividly or clearly, but I remembered I was face to face with Satan, and it's almost like he had like a board, and this board had like so many different things in it that represented strongholds in my life. I don't remember what the other items were, but I do remember that one of the items was a vial of blood. Now, the vial of blood, and literally every single item that was there, I would grab it, and I would just destroy it. And we were like going to like different dimensions and stuff, and it was like, I would just grab the other item and I would just destroy it. So I remembered having this dream, and it just felt so real, and it felt like there was like this big burden that was just lifted off of me. Whatever strongholds I had in my life were definitely just taken away from me. So literally after that, I came to a realization that these strongholds that I had for years is what God wanted to remove from my life. So within this fasting that I did, it was a spiritual cleansing, and at the same time, it literally, was something that God not only wanted for me to do, but something I needed to do in order to get rid of these strongholds that I had in my life. Now, it's interesting because the preacher said for a week. Now, had I done the fast for 2 or 3 days, I would have not experienced, going through that completely. Have come to the realization that we don't battle against flesh and blood. Like, in other words, our fight is not with our parents. Our fight is not with our brothers or sisters or, whoever it is. Our fight is literally with the demonic force, the principalities of darkness. Literally, all these things has nothing to do with flesh and blood. Now, Satan will use these people, to go against you. Like, they may say something, or they may, trigger for you to, act a certain way towards them. But at the end of the day, it's like puppeteering. Like, he's just, just influencing people to do what he wants to do. And, I just want to tell you right now, like, don't listen to the lie. I've had bitterness in my heart. I've had unforgiveness in my heart. I've had all these different things in my heart. And, God has shown me that at the end of the day, it's not about that. So, there's another Bible verse that talks about how can you love the Father when you don't even love your brother? So here I am, have this issue with my own dad, where I'm like, yeah, God, I love you. I haven't even seen God, and yet how can I say I love God more when I can't even piece it out to my father? So, Dad, if you're watching this, I just wanted to let you know, like, I don't hold a grudge against you anymore. I'm not, bitter about what has happened in the past. An older brother, I definitely want to reconnect with you too. Yeah, you took my money. You pretty much, took everything I had, I would say. But, God had a plan. God had a purpose. And at the end of the day, I know that, it wasn't your doing. It was all Satan's doing. And, I just hope that, we can, reconnect. So in retrospect, looking back, there was a lot of, demonic activities. There was a lot of bitterness. There was a lot of jealousy, envy. There's been a lot of betrayal. There's been a lot of, backstabbing. You name it. Literally, I've most likely I've gone through it. But, when it's all said and done, this life is short. And, money, when the Bible talks about money, it says that, the love of money is the root of all evil. And from my testimony alone, you guys can see how money has not only destroyed, literally, relationships, families, and all this stuff. And at the end of it it's just paper. And here we are, fighting each other for paper. And when I look back, it's like God had a purpose, and God knew what he was doing. And yeah, it sucks I had to go through it. But at the end of it, looking back, I probably would have been a different person had I been able to use the money. I probably would have ended up doing some other stuff. And I can testify that Jesus is real. And I can testify that, God is real. And the stuff that he's doing is real. So if you're struggling with, what's my purpose? What should I do? One thing you need to pay attention to is that Satan is all about control. He wants to control your life. He wants to influence you to do what he wants. At the end of the day, it's all about control. Now, you have a choice. Do you want to allow him to continue telling you what to do? Or do you want to come and draw near towards the light, towards God? You choose. You have a choice. We all have a choice. I don't know, again, if you're going through any demonic activities, if you're into witchcraft, if you're looking into that stuff, I just want you to realize how much destruction it has done in my life. and how much damage it has done overall. But at the same time, there is hope and there is light, and that light is Jesus. And I just pray that you come to that realization as well. Time is short. We know that He's returning soon, and tomorrow's not promised. So you may not have an opportunity. A lot of hurt and pain and just overall damage has happened. I just compare that to today and what how good I have it today, and how much God has blessed me today. I have a good job. I have a beautiful wife and a beautiful daughter, and everything is just going so good for me right now that when I look back, it's almost like I didn't need the money. I didn't need all this stuff to be happy. And when we think about money, we think about these things. At the end of the day, they're just material possession. I don't know what situation you're going through in your life. I have no idea what you're going through, but God is a good God, and He has a purpose in your life. And you can dismiss what I'm saying, or you can move on and continue doing and living your life as if nothing happened. But at the end of the day, we all have a calling, and God is calling us for His purpose. The only question is, are you willing to accept it, or are you going to let Satan still control your life in the way he does? It's really up to you, and you can't just let Satan continue stealing from you and continue stealing the things that God has planned for you. So I just pray that this really encourages you, and just you're able to see how God has helped me and has endured. And yes, I could be bitter about all of this, but at the end of the day, it's like something that I'm glad actually I didn't even get a chance to use it. So I just praise God for just getting me through this, and now being able to allow me to have this freedom, and just reconcile with my brother and my dad. So hope this blesses you.